What's happening, everybody? On today's show, we will go around the conference as one of Georgia's big offensive weapons is going to miss spring practice. We'll tell you who that is. And we'll continue to get you ready for the start of SEC baseball season coming up this weekend as we catch up with new Texas A&M head coach Jim Schlossnagle. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. Today's episode, of course, is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. I'm Chris Gordy. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at lockedonsec.com. Let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Georgia as Brock Bowers, the freshman standout tight end for the Georgia Bulldogs, well, he's going to miss spring practice. That's according to a report from Anthony Dasher of Rivals. The report says Bowers is recovering from shoulder surgery after recently undergoing surgery to repair a torn labrum. And it is expected that Bowers should be back by the start of fall camp. He'll be heading into his sophomore season. He led the Bulldogs in receiving this past year as a true freshman, 56 catches for 882 yards and 13 touchdowns. That production, my goodness, for a guy who was not expected to be the starting tight end at the start of the year. He also had 4 carries for 56 yards and another score. He was so productive throughout this year, named SEC Freshman of the Week twice. After the Orange Bowl performance, Kirby Smart talked about his shoulder injury. He said, look, he's had a shoulder injury going back for a couple of weeks. We had him practicing in a black jersey, limiting some contact. He's a tough dude, but he wanted to get back in there and obviously did his thing throughout the postseason. And a guy that Georgia's offense is going to lean on heavily going into next year. And, of course, having Stetson Bennett back, Brock Bowers should see a lot of targets next season. Now over at Missouri, defensive coordinator Steve Wilks, he jumped ship after one season in Como, heading back to the NFL, joining the Carolina Panthers. On Monday, Matt Zenitz of On3 Sports reported that Mizzou is just going to promote Blake Baker to defensive coordinator. Blake Baker, of course, was on LSU staff last year. He just recently joined Missouri in January. He was the linebackers coach at LSU. He was Miami's defensive coordinator in 2019 and 2020. He was also defensive coordinator at Louisiana Tech from 2015 to 2018. So he's got familiarity as a DC. Again, got some back into the SEC last year at LSU, and now he will be the defensive coordinator under Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. Paul Feinbaum was sounding off this week on the latest on the Brian Harsin offseason drama that all unfolded over on the Plains. Feinbaum appearing on the McElroy and Kubelik in the morning show in Birmingham on Monday, giving his thoughts on what has to happen for Brian Harsin and all this stuff to settle down. He said, look, it will take the right person in charge of the program that ends up staying a long time and builds his own power base. A lot of what we're talking about at Auburn existed at Alabama. It didn't exist in the same way. There were just pockets of power brokers across the state. There was one in particular, and it took Nick Saban to come in and say, hey, we're doing it my way. He said, but they did it his way. By winning so often and so many championships, he was able to coalesce his own group around him. Feinbaum added that Saban also had a resume coming in. He had support from Mal Moore. So the problem at Auburn is Brian Harsin doesn't have anyone. Did we hear from Alan Green over the weekend? He's an athletic director with no power. He took one swing in hiring Brian Harsin, and in most people's account, it has failed. So some strong words there from Paul Feinbaum when it comes to Brian Harsin. Again, all the announcements came out past couple days that Auburn is standing by Brian Harsin, but man, again, he's got to win next season to keep this thing rolling. Alcohol sales across SEC stadiums is something that's kind of becoming more and more in vogue these last couple years. However, Alabama, they are pumping the brakes on alcohol sales for the time being. Athletic Director Greg Byrne released a statement on social media Monday saying the Crimson Tide will not be moving forward with alcohol sales at this time, pending a further review of a service fee that the Tuscaloosa City Council adopted at a February 8th meeting. For ticketed events of at least 1,000 where alcohol is sold, the ordinance calls for fees to be added. He said, look, it's very unfortunate that the city of Tuscaloosa's plan would unreasonably target Alabama athletics and our fans with a service fee on all tickets where alcohol is sold, even tickets sold to children who won't be drinking. Basically, alcohol was expected to be available at Coleman Coliseum in the coming days after the city council approved the liquor license for Alabama concessions, but that is not going to be happening. So they'll have to see if they can resolve this. And meanwhile, over in Athens, Georgia's baseball and softball teams will be following the Bulldogs basketball programs by offering beer sales at games this year. It's a pilot program still, of course, that was approved by the SEC in 2019, but Georgia announced Friday it will sell import, domestic, craft, and premium beer designated concession stands inside Foley Field and Jack Turner Stadium this year. Sales will begin with the February 18th season opener at Georgia baseball, while softball sales won't start until SEC play begins in March. Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, he has put out his way too early college football bowl projections. The college football playoff semifinals will be December 31st, held at the Fiesta and Peach Bowls, and he's got SEC teams in both of them. Here are his projections. College Football National Championship, he's got Alabama versus Ohio State. In the rounds prior to that, he's got Bama versus Clemson, and in Atlanta in the Peach Bowl, and then Ohio State versus Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl. So he's got Bama and Georgia both back in the national championship, but this time Alabama playing Ohio State in the championship game. So probably not likely. Some other games, he's got Texas A&M playing Oklahoma State in the Sugar Bowl. He's got Texas versus Tennessee in the Texas Bowl, Penn State versus Florida in the Citrus, Notre Dame versus Kentucky in the Outback, and Pitt versus LSU in the Gator Bowl. Again, it's fun fodder for the offseason, but the thing I don't like is when we take what we just saw in college football and we say, oh, that's just all going to kind of repeat itself next year. No, things are going to change. There's going to be somebody who exceeds expectations, somebody who doesn't exceed expectations, maybe a new face or two in the playoff games that we haven't seen before. So I digress. But if you're going to do predictions, it doesn't hurt to go out on a limb sometime and assume things will change. And that we'll just say, oh, A&M will just be in the Sugar Bowl, and Georgia and Alabama will both make the playoff. Odds are that's not going to happen again. Anyway, thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, our conversation with Jim Schlossnagle, new head coach at Texas A&M, coming over from after coaching years at TCU with their baseball team. He is now over in College Station, so that's coming up in just a second. Look, football is over, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. And from all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach will land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC odds, right to your Olympic coverage and information. Head on over to their website today. You can do so on your desktop, your mobile device, whatever, and learn about all the trends and action going on at BetOnline. Again, go check out their website right now. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. Run along here, and crazy to think we are already into the start of yet another SEC baseball season. Basketball going strong. Football will be here before we know it. But, man, I'm so looking forward to this baseball season across the SEC. Some new faces, some big-time names coming into the conference. One of those guys join us right now. He is head coach of the Texas A&M Aggies, coming over from years of great success over at TCU. Coach Jim Schlossnagle joins us now. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, let's start here, Coach. Years and years of tremendous success at TCU, 20 years in coaching. I think 5 trips to Omaha with TCU. Texas A&M. I know you talked about it in your press conference when you took the job, but why now? Why was this job the right time at the right moment?
Yeah, I I think obviously 18 years at TCU was amazing, and 5 trips to the College World Series. I feel like that. Um, Definitely left, Fort Worth better than I found it, and that's not because of me, but it was because of great players and assistant coaches and a phenomenal commitment from a great university. Both of my children still go to school there, so I have and will forever have incredible fondness for TCU. But for me, both personally and professionally, at 51 years old, I just felt like it was a time personally where I, wanted a little bit of a life change, and professionally, it was, I've always been attracted by, the. I hate to say the building of something because Texas A&M's baseball program is already in a really great position. Rob Childress did a phenomenal job here. 13 straight trips to the NCAA tournament. Coach Johnson and Coach Chandler before him. But I guess it would be building on something and the opportunity to compete, not just in the best baseball conference, but the best division of the best baseball conference in the country in the SEC West. And to do that in the state of Texas, 2 hours and 15 minutes from my children in Fort Worth, and at a university that is just as committed as you can be to winning at the highest level, doing it the right way. And I really had no idea the power and the strength of Aggie Land and 510,000 former students. So it was just I have a saying that I try to live by sometimes: is if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room. And certainly, I did leave something on the table at TCU. We never won a national title, or at least during my time. But I'm sure that program is going to continue to succeed. And our job now is to build on the past and get Texas A&M back to Omaha and playing, winning the final game.
What has it been like so far, getting situated in the new job and just getting accustomed to everything with the new, the facilities are top notch and the ballpark obviously is outstanding, but what's it been like kind of getting, settled in with everything? I know you guys had fall ball to kind of get an early look on how this team's going to look like and all that, but what's it been like for you making that adjustment?
It's been great. It's been, very, it's been a lot of work. There's no, when you do something like this, the first thing you got to do is hire a staff, and then you have to, create and build and maintain a culture that allows people to have success. And then, you start recruiting talent, getting it in here. And we did that first in the transfer portal in the summer and spent a lot of time on that, which is a whole different topic. And then, these days in college athletics, especially baseball, when you take a job, you're not just one recruiting class behind, you're 2 and 3 recruiting classes behind. So, just attacking all of that. And, but we were able to attract a great staff. Those are the guys that deserve the bulk of the credit for anything we do. And we just getting them here, getting their families here, and then getting the team back on campus, and then getting into fall practice and everybody creating relationships, building a bond, teaching how we like to do things, whether it be how we take care of the locker rooms or how we do a bunt defense or a first and third defense or cutting a relay, and that kind of stuff, evaluating talent. So it's really been, drinking out of a fire hose until we got to the holidays. And then everybody had a chance to kind of address their personal situations. I was able to move into a house. I'm still living out of some boxes, but that's okay. And now we're, preparing for the season and getting ready to, attack that and see what direction we head.
Touch a little bit on your staff, Coach, because I know you talked about assembling a great one. And, a guy I know from his time at LSU, Nolan Cain, one of the best recruiters in the country. Obviously, some transition there at the LSU staff, so you're able to pull him away. But what does a guy like Nolan Cain mean to your staff? Because, man, he's a guy who's helped assemble #1 recruiting classes at LSU, and I know he's going to help you there in College Station.
Yeah, I mean, obviously recruiting is the lifeblood of any program in any sport, really any profession. You have to, a leader's number one job is to recruit and develop talent, along with building the culture. And Nolan is at the forefront of that for us. And he's a tireless worker. He's a phenomenal human being. He's got a great family. His wife is just, she was a college athlete at LSU, so she gets it, which is super important. He's got built-in relationships, not just in this region of the country, including the state of Texas, but all over the United States with summer coaches and scouts and advisors, agents, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stakeholders in kids' decisions these days, and he's got a lot of great relationships with them. But the thing he doesn't get credit for is he's a really good coach. I mean, a really good baseball person. He's coached third base for the last 4, 5, 6 years in Alex Box Stadium for LSU in the College World Series, and so coach catchers. He's been a part of coaching pitching. Obviously, been a part of base running as a third base coach. So he's a really good baseball guy. Sometimes in our sport, the recruiting aspect which is important, but at the end of the day, you can't just recruit him. You got to be able to coach him too. And he's really good at that and got a great demeanor. And we're very honored to have him in Aggieland.
More with Jim Schlossnagle in just a second. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it is impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need. Save time and save money when you use Rock Auto. Go over there to their website. Check them out. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Go check out their easy-to-use website today. Find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, and make sure you're right Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us boxes. They did know that we sent you. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. It is rockauto.com. Go check them out today. Continue our conversation with Coach Jim Schlossnagle. And Coach, I know a lot of coaches, when they come to a new place, they throw out things like, look, this is going to take some time. Rome wasn't built in a day. You guys are losing a lot from last year's team. Will Frizzell, obviously the big name that everybody remembers, so fantastic of a career in the SEC. But talk a little bit about this team. You mentioned the transfer portal is going to be a lot of new faces, but some familiar faces from last year, some good building blocks that will be able to help this team this season. But just touch a little bit on this, how this roster is going to look this year.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Rome wasn't built in a day, but at the same time, like you said, the most impatient person in this entire equation is me. So I don't have any patience for hanging around, waiting and hoping. And if you do that in any conference, but especially this league, you're going to get bloodied real quick. So we inherited a group of guys that are super hungry. Start at shortstop. I mean, there's never been a good baseball team without a good catcher and without a good shortstop. And obviously, pitching is paramount in anything. But you can have a really good pitching staff, and if you have a bad catcher and a bad shortstop, then you're really going to struggle. And we inherited an awesome shortstop, Kalai Harrison, played every day as a freshman in the Southeastern Conference, and so he's bigger, stronger, certainly experienced. And that's huge. And guys like Logan Britt, Austin Boast, Trevor Werner, Taylor Smith played a fair amount last year on this club. So, you'd like to think everybody gets a little bit better. Austin Boast, I think, is the only returning 300 hitter on the team, hit 11 home runs. So we're super excited about him. But Kalai Harrison, right there in the middle of the field is just a massive building block for our team. And then in the transfer portal, we were able to get, already one of my top 5 human beings I've ever coached, and just all first team all Pac-12 catcher in Troy Claunch, and keeping him healthy and getting him out there and managing a program, managing a team, managing a pitching staff. That's a big part of it. So, we can talk about a lot of different players, but right now, the 2 guys that really on a good baseball team that are going to help us become the best version that we could possibly be is Kalai Harrison and Troy Claunch. So,
Coach, obviously in the Big 12, you got to coach in some really cool environments, but how much are you looking forward to coaching in some of these iconic places week in and week out in the SEC when you talk about Alec Bach Stadium, Swayze Field, Dudy Noble, Baum Walker? I mean, just some of the great environments that are going to be packed and loud and hostile environments, but I got to thank you as a coach. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I know you're up to the challenge and the task of going into some of these great environments.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun, so you have to actually go do it. Yeah, there's no doubt about it, right? And it's way more fun to roll into those places with elite pitching and that kind of thing, which we're currently developing and recruiting. But yeah, that was the attraction. I asked, I had the opportunity to go to another place in this conference several years ago. And I was looking for some advice, and I spoke with Ray Tanner, the athletic director at South Carolina, who left North Carolina State, where he was super successful. That's when I knew him best to go be the coach at South Carolina. And I asked him why he left North Carolina State to go to South Carolina. And he said, I just wanted to say before I finished coaching that I had coached in the American League East, right? And that's what he compared, the SEC to. So, that's when you turn on television and you think of elite college baseball, those are the places you think of. And Bluebell Park and Olsen Field is and should be a part of that. So those places are awesome, and they're great facilities and great fan bases. But Texas A&M should be as good, if not better, than all those places. So our plans are to build a ballpark or renovate a ballpark here to get our seating somewhere between 10, 12, and 15,000 people. We're the largest school. We have 70,000 students. We're 70 miles from Houston. We're, within 2.5 or 3 hours of about, I don't know how many, 25 million people between DFW, Austin, San Antonio, Houston. So there's no reason that a place like Texas A&M shouldn't be drawing that many people. And number one, we have to build a ballpark that's capable of holding it. And number two, we have to put a team on the field that everybody wants to see. And so we will get there. But to answer your question, definitely looking forward to those environments and experiences. Those are great life experiences. And that's why you come to Texas A&M is to be a part of that. No disrespect to any other league, but I've coached in most of them from the East Coast, South, and all the way on the West Coast. And there's nothing like this. This is as big league as it gets in college baseball.
To that point, Coach, a lot of the preseason rankings have come out the last couple of weeks, and I'm seeing a lot of these teams. I mean, the SEC with over half the top 10 is SEC teams. I mean, when you look at your schedule and you see ranked team, is it kind of the thing where you got to just take it game by game, series by series? And I mean, you can't just, because you can get yourself overwhelmed just kind of looking at the whole schedule and how tough it is, right?
Yeah, no question. I mean, and I haven't been through it. Obviously, I hear all the stories. I haven't been through it. We at TCU or other schools I've coached, we've played these teams, but a lot of times it's a neutral environment, or it's in a postseason, or a College World Series, super regional stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, what you have to be able to do, it's just baseball. It's never about the best team. It's only about the team that plays better on that day, and that's what we have to focus on. And it's still baseball. But there's no doubt. I mean, you definitely can't get too high or too low, because this game is going to eat you up and humble you, especially in this league. So we'll take them one at a time, and that sounds coachy, but that's exactly what you have to do, and stay positive and know that it's never about what happens to you. It's only about how you react to it, and we'll be prepared and we'll be ready to go.
February 18th, Texas A&M hosts Fordham, and you guys will get the baseball season underway. Coach, best of luck to you there in Aggieland, and thanks so much for taking some time with us.
You got it, Chris. Thanks for having me, man. Gig 'em.
Absolutely. Gig 'em there for Coach Jim Schlossnagle, and really appreciate him for taking some time out with us. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Our thanks again to Jim Schlossnagle for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with an all-new edition of Locked On SEC, getting you caught up to date with all the latest news going on around the conference, as well as some great fun interviews. Later this week, we'll have Jay Johnson from the LSU baseball team. He'll join us, catching up with both the new head coaches in the SEC, Jim Schlossnagle at Texas A&M and Jay Johnson at LSU. That'll come a little bit later in the week. Thanks again for making us your first listen every day. Now you go make your second listen. Check out the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and Lee Sterling. I'm Chris Gordy. Talk to you guys tomorrow.